As you all know, a few months ago, I dipped my foot into the world of shoot 'em ups, specifically the Touhou series. During that time, I decided to go through the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th entries into the series, and I'd say I had a pretty good time. I ate a lot of crap, used a lot of bombs, and failed the runs right at the very end, but it was a damn good experience. Fast forward to now, a couple months later, I decide to get back into it, this time tackling the next 3 games in the series. So the question here is, do I still have what it takes? Will I be able to power through these games, or will I fall short right at the very end? And most importantly, will I have just as good as a time while playing through them? Well, we're about to find out. Okay, so before we get into the meat of the video, I would just like to put this little section here to address some of the comments from the last Touhou video. So if you're new here or don't really care, feel free to skip over this. Truth be told, this video was supposed to be released almost immediately after the last one, but something kept me from getting this out, which I'll get into later. I was meant to address a lot of questions or statements you guys gave a lot earlier, since I was planning on including a section like this in the video to begin with, so sorry if it felt like I was leaving y'all in the dark. Anyway, let's address the main thing you all have pointed out. Why didn't you 1cc? Now, I'm just going to make something perfectly clear here. I understand the community standards of beating a game would require you to 1cc or clear the game in one continue. If the community says I didn't beat the game, then that is totally fine by me. I wasn't really playing the games with the intent of achieving a goal or going up the community standards, but rather I was playing simply to get a taste of the games. All I wanted to do was go through stages 1 to 6 in an actual run, formulate my own opinion on the game, and just give my thoughts on it. You have to understand that at the end of the day, while I thoroughly enjoyed playing, I was still playing with the intent of making a video. A lot of people in the comments seem to think that I was going to one and done these games, which is completely false. In my free time, I will probably go back in 1cc and maybe play on harder difficulties, but just for the sake of making the video, I just wanted to experience the game for what it was and see what it had to offer. With the main thing discussed in the comments out of the way, allow me to address some other things people are pointing out. First off, Windows 98. There's obviously nothing too deep about this one, it was just me spreading this information because I'm a dumbass. My monkey brain just saw the number 98 and immediately thought of Windows 98. Next, people pointed out that there is another final boss in Imperishable Night. I found out about this boss while I was editing the last video, and actually, I have fought her already, although on easy. So yes, by the time the last video came out, I was already well aware that Touhou 8 had an alternate stage 6, but I just couldn't include it in the video. Finally, yes, I am also aware of extra stages, and I definitely plan on doing them sometime in the near future. Now with that all out of the way, let's finally get started on the first game of today's video. Mountain of Faith. Okay, so I don't know if I'm just bad or what, but apparently this game is supposed to be easy? I mean, just... What about this is easy? Apparently, most people consider this game to be easier than Scarlet Devil, but holy crap, I do not agree. I had a much harder time dealing with this one than I did with all of the games I played last time. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's because I used continues last video, and I definitely see some truth in that statement. For those unaware, Mountain of Faith completely reworks the continue system. Back then, it was really easily exploitable, allowing you to revive exactly where you failed the run, and it can really save your life during bosses. Only caveat being you're capped to 3 continues. Now in Mountain of Faith, they changed this to unlimited continues, however, it restarts you at the beginning of the stage with base lives. Now this may sound beyond broken at first, and starting at the beginning of the stage doesn't sound that bad at all. But trust me, it is a lot worse than it sounds, and it makes the game that much harder to clear, especially for a newbie like me. You only get 2 extra lives normally, meaning you can only take 3 hits before it's game over. A lot of the time, the bosses are really difficult to do under 3 hits. The reason the old continue system was so good is because it basically acts as free extends. You technically have 6 extra lives instead of just 2. In the new continue system, however, you are absolutely starved of resources. The reason this is so painful is because you usually get extends throughout multiple stages and you'd want to pile them up, basically snowballing your way through the game. When you die and continue at a stage halfway through the game with base resources, it can really kill your momentum. That's not to mention the stages are really no joke, and if you'd want some room for error during the boss, you'll have to play the stages perfectly. Another thing completely reworked is the bomb system. Before, your bombs were linked to your lives and you lose them all upon taking a hit. While the system gave you a limited amount of bombs, you were encouraged to use them all as it would maximize your resources. In the new system, the bombs have been linked to your power, consuming a chunk of it upon going kaboom. While this new system once again allows for technically infinite resources so long as you keep collecting power, this in turn discourages you from spamming your bombs. When you lose power, your shots get weaker. Weaker shots means it takes more time for bosses to die. Now if you spam your bombs during a boss fight in the hopes to kill it faster, it actually ends up making the fight go longer. This can really keep digging you in a deeper hole since if the fight goes longer, you have a higher chance of getting hit, forcing you to use yet another bomb, further decreasing your power, which further extends the fight. It was such a pain in the butt getting used to the system at first. New systems aside though, I still genuinely do think this game is pretty hard, or at least harder than the games I played last time, partially because the game forces you to learn streaming. A lot of the projectiles in this are aimed, and you really need to learn how to deal with these. It took me some time to get used to them, but eventually I did learn how to do it properly, and it wasn't so bad after some time. In my opinion though, the real killer of this game is Stage 4. I don't know what the hell was going on here, but the difficulty spike is just so incredibly massive. The game just turns it up to 11 out of nowhere and gives you some of the most dense patterns I've seen so far. I'd really be lying if I said this stage didn't frustrate the hell out of me when I was playing through it, especially while I was still getting used to the rework systems. The stage isn't particularly long, especially when compared to Perfect Cherry Blossom Stage 4, but dear lord it's a struggle getting through it. Now, enough talk about the stages, no one cares about that. I know you all are here to hear me talk about the bosses. There are some weird patterns in this game. A lot of the spells the bosses use really threw me off and I'm unsure how to deal with some of them even now. On top of that, they are a lot more dense than the ones in the previous games, and I got overwhelmed pretty easily by some of them, especially Sanai spells, dear lord. However, there's one boss in particular that I like to talk about. The final boss, Kanako. I hated this boss at first. Like I said, this game forces you to learn how to deal with aim projectiles, and no boss makes you learn harder than Kanako does. Almost all of her spells are aimed and have to be streamed, and most of them have a very specific method to dodge. She made me eat ass, and she honestly still does. Actually, if you hop on over to my second channel, you'll see my replay of Mountain of Faith, where I spend an entire 40 minutes spamming continue trying to muscle my way through stage 6. However, as I learned how to deal with her attacks, I found it to be pretty fun and pretty unique. I know I gave the final bosses of the last few games some high praise, but honestly, Kanako is so much more memorable than them. Her spells are really unique and they're really fun to do once you know how to deal with them. Overall, Mountain of Faith is good. It's not my favorite, but I don't dislike it either. It's a pretty solid entry that I'm sure I'll be going back to every now and then. Ah yes, Subterranean Animism. I'm sure you've all been waiting for this one. Even before picking up Touhou, I have heard horror stories about this game. I've always heard about it being infamously difficult, and a lot of people consider it to be the hardest game in the series. Now, did it live up to my expectations? Well, yes. Yes, it did. Subterranean Animism uses pretty much the exact same system as Mountain of Faith, except the only minor difference is that you have less power, meaning you have less chances to use bombs. Another mechanic which I'm pretty sure wasn't in Mountain of Faith is that you get life pieces upon capturing a spell, meaning you have to go through a spell without getting hit or bombing. Other than that, I don't really have to go over any new mechanics for this one since even if there are new ones, they apparently weren't important enough for me to notice. But man, this game kicked my ass when I first played it. Up until this point, I've never really started to struggle with the game until I reached stage 4, which is apparently the standard for Touhou games. When I started this game, however, I couldn't even make it to stage 3. I know I said Mountain of Faith's patterns threw me for a loop, but goddamn, the ones in this game step up the crazy by tenfold. This is the first game in the series that I've actually had to look up a route on YouTube for, just because I couldn't figure out for the life of me how the hell I was supposed to deal with some of these patterns. It took me absolute ages just to even set foot into stage 4, and even longer to get out of it. If I'm going to be honest, I was getting incredibly frustrated with the game. The bomb system felt extremely punishing, and it demands you play perfectly to get extents. Resources feel extremely dry in this game, and it forces you to learn how all the bosses work if you want to be able to progress. And that's what I think makes this game so hard. Subterranean Animism, I feel, is a game you really need to learn. You can't muscle your way through it like with the previous installments. If you didn't care about 1cc's, then you could just spam continues, and Mountain of Faith was generous enough with resources, so it gave you much more room for error. Subterranean Animism forces you to learn patterns, it forces you to learn routes, and it forces you to learn good resource management. But once you get this all down, to be completely honest, the game gets really fun. The patterns are incredibly satisfying to dodge once you know how to handle them, and they are very consistent to do. Yes, you really need to put the time into practicing, but 1.3k hours in Geometry Dash gave you the endurance to do so. All the bosses in this game are all really memorable, with really unique attacks. They're all pretty gimmicky, but all can be dealt with once you realize what to do against them. At first, I was ripping my hair out trying to figure out how to do them on my own, but after looking up routes online and practicing enough, I started playing against them for fun in my own spare time. However, none can really compare to what is probably my favorite boss in the entire series so far. The Stage 6 boss, Utsuho Ryuji. This boss just blew everything out of the water with how epic the fight was, and on top of that, as a former GD player, she sported a very familiar theme. Going into this boss for the first time and just seeing the nukes she throws at your face just gave me an indescribable feeling of awe mixed with pure dread. This, to me, is one of, if not the most intense bosses the series has had to offer thus far. I'm not the best at dodging her stuff, and I do struggle with some attacks, but I found her to be pretty manageable after a bit of practice. She's incredibly intimidating at first with all the flashy visuals, but you can really get a good rhythm on her fight, I find. Not to even mention her final attack, oh my god. She becomes a literal sun in the middle of the screen and she starts sucking everything into her, even you. This is hands down the most butt clench inducing final attack I've come across in the series, and I was honestly crapping my pants at this point. Reason being, surprise surprise, the run I was on was a 1cc. Yes, you heard it. To all you doubters in the comments, I finally officially beat a Touhou game. I hope you're happy. In conclusion, without a shadow of a doubt, Subterranean Animism is my favorite game in the series. It was hard, the journey was filled with a lot of lost lives and failed runs, but in the end, once I persevered, I fell in love. They say good things come in time, and I definitely warmed up to this game after investing a good few hours into it. On to the final game of today's video, Undefined Fantastic Object, or UFO as I'll refer to it from now on. I absolutely hate this game. In stark contrast to the praise I just showered Subterranean Animism with, I absolutely despise UFO. I mentioned a while ago that I was actually supposed to get this out much earlier, but something prevented me from doing so. Well, that something was UFO. I have been playing this game on and off for like the past 6 months, and the thing is, I didn't even clear it. Laugh at me if you want to, ridicule me even more than you guys did for using continues. I accept that I suck at this game. In all honesty, I really wanted to clear this, maybe even 1cc, I really did. But goddamn, it is just so unfun. I have sunk over 20 hours into this, which is more than my playtime of Mountain of Faith and Subterranean Animism combined. I've even livestreamed this game in the past. I know if I put more time into it, then definitely I would have been able to clear it, but I just don't want to force myself to play something that I don't find fun. All the games I've played so far I thoroughly enjoyed, well except maybe Touhou 9, but that didn't take me long at all to clear. And I never really forced myself to sit through any of them. This one, however, I was pushing myself to keep playing just because I was so desperate to get this video out. But now I realize it's really not worth my time, at least not for now. 20 hours is more than enough playtime for me to give my thoughts on the game, and I've played through all the stages and bosses in practice anyway. With that out of the way, let me enlighten you all on why I so heavily dislike UFO. First, let's discuss the mechanics. Bombs have been reverted to the old style of bombs, no more linking to power. Next, from the title of the game, the main gimmick involves these UFOs you come across throughout your run. The game starts you off with little to no resources as usual, and in order to get more resources, you have to catch 3 of the UFOs that bounce around your screen to make a big UFO. You fill this big UFO up with points and power and shoot it down to reap your rewards. Sounds fine on paper, but playing through it is an entirely different story. I have to mention now that there are 4 different types of UFO. Red for life, green for bombs, blue for score, and rainbow to convert points to power and vice versa. To choose between these UFOs, you need to collect 3 of the same color to get the colored ones, and 1 of each color for the rainbow one. What makes this system so frustrating is that if you're going for a specific type of UFO, you have to avoid collecting other colors of UFO, which makes them act as pretty much an additional projectile. The color of the UFO usually isn't static either, and it swaps around after a timer. This leads to even more frustration, as if it flashes the color you want but is in a really bad spot, you're most likely going to want to grab it anyway, playing very high risk for a low to medium reward. Unlike Subterranean Animism, which forces you to play safe in order to get extends, this game forces you to literally run headfirst into danger if you want a third of your life. Meaning if you get hit attempting it, you get negative reward. It's such a stupid system in my opinion, and it really led to a lot of anger on my end. Couple that with this game's focus on random projectiles instead of static or aimed ones, and you get actively forced out of your route multiple times. That I find is my biggest issue with this game, the inconsistency. I praise Subterranean Animism for rewarding you heavily if you learn the bosses, but in this game there's barely anything to learn. UFO focuses on random micro-dodging above all else, so a lot of the time, no matter how much you practice a boss, you can still get screwed over by plain banned RNG with the Danmaku. Even after 20 hours of practice on the game, there is still not a single boss that I can do consistently apart from the stage 1 boss. If Mountain of Faith had a few dense patterns but mostly aimed ones, UFO has mostly random and even denser patterns, with tiny sprinkles of aimed ones. The patterns of this game are so incredibly dense that it makes the previous games look like I've been playing on easy. Couple that with the random movement and it really got me frustrated. I absolutely hate lack of consistency in games. How I tackle hard games is to keep on practicing until I find the best way to clear a section, but it feels like no matter how much I practice UFO, I eat crap anyway. Not to mention the bosses aren't even fun to do. Instead of the usual satisfaction I get from capturing a spell card, all I get from this game is a sigh of exhaustion and the thought that says thank god it's over. I specifically hate the stage 5 boss show. If you're on stream you'd know this, but I hate laser attacks, and this boss was almost purely laser coupled with random attacks. If you find this boss fun, then good on you, but I really genuinely do not like this boss. None of the attacks are fun, none of them feel good to play through, and the micro-dodging sections are just irritating to deal with above all else. I really don't think I'll be playing this game anytime within the near future, since I really do not find any enjoyment in it. Now, despite all that negativity I spewed out just now, my opinion on the series as a whole has not changed one bit. My experience playing these 3 games have still been mostly positive, and I still very much look forward to playing more. I still find so much enjoyment playing, and I'm sure that won't be changing anytime soon. Bullet hell shoot 'em ups is such a unique genre to me, and something about it really fascinates me. Trying my hand on the rest of Touhou is something I very much want to do, and hopefully I find even more enjoyment in the later entries. Again, I apologize for this video taking so long to come out, but hopefully the next one will be just along the horizon. As always, if you enjoyed it and made it this far, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe. Even if my channel has grown substantially since the first Touhou video, the fact that a simple sub will make my day is still there. Keep leaving your nice comments and keep your support going. You guys are the best. Until next time, thanks for watching.